Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the fourth seminar of the Iscia seminar series, Games and Play. We're going to do something a little different today, moving into the space where medicine, creativity, and lived experience meet. The presentation today is entitled Humanizing Medicine Through Creative Play. And it invites us to think about how something as open-ended and exploratory as play can help make sense of something really rather complex and often invisible as illness. Our speaker, Micaela Scholtz, comes to this work actually from kind of a deeply personal and a creative place. Her engagement with endometriosis, which is an often misunderstood and invisible condition, led her to explore how creative processes might offer not just expression, but also kind of relief, a way of kind of quietening your mind and making the unseen visible. She draws on Brown's theory of creative play, and works with a set of playful personas, the creator, the collector, the explorer, and the storyteller, as ways of moving through and responding to experience. And these become kind of not just really metaphors, but practical steps in a kind of a creative process that opens up an in-between space, liminal zone, favorite word, where illness is felt but not easily seen or explained. So what she says is that what emerges in this approach is something that doesn't just represent illness, but it kind of rethinks how we might see and understand it, particularly in relation to women's lived experiences of endometriosis. It's more about visualizing what usually remains hidden, what's about that, and in doing that, contributing to a much more humane and kind of empathetic medical discourse. Well, good luck with that, Micaela. Micaela is a researcher, visual artist, trained graphic designer, and an art lecturer here at Nelson Mandela University. And her work consistently engages with questions of representation and the impact these have on women living with invisible illness. Her MA research entitled Visual Narratives Portraying the Lived Experiences of Women with an Invisible Illness forms the kind of the basis and foundation for today's talk. So with that, welcome, Micaela. Looking very forward to your presentation, and over to you.
Thank you, Professor Hurst. Thank you for that lovely introduction. I don't think I need to add or say anything more. I think you've summarized it so well and so beautifully. Thank you for that. I am going to share my screen. There we go. Let's go into presentation view. I trust that that's visible. Right, so I should start with a bit of a kind of background in terms of where I'm currently at. So as a newly registered PhD student, I am excited to present that which is relatively new territory for me. Or I should rather say that currently, through recent research, I was able to term and better understand after applying this approach unknowingly for probably the past 6 years. So during the presentation, I flip between some of my personal notes on the concept and theory, which I hope won't make it too confusing. So please bear with me in that space. As Prof. Hurst has already mentioned, my presentation is titled Humanizing Medicine Through Creative Play, Discovering, Uncovering, Visually Communicating the Lived Experiences of Women with, oops, apologies, I just want to minimize this. There we go. There we go. With endometriosis. I was introduced to this text about a year ago, and I include it here as it is from my understanding where the theory of play stems from. The book argues with some contradictory annotations that play is the foundation from which human social and cultural developments is constructed. For some, it is regarded as a discharge of abundant energy. For others, a form of satisfaction or a simple tool to suffice the need for relaxation. In as early as 1949, Huizinga described play as a function of culture and notes that it is experienced differently by all who engage it. It is further noted that play is an accompaniment, but simultaneously an integral part of life through its various physical, social, and emotional stages. The significant function of play is recognized as that which transcends the immediate needs of life and enables meaning to be imparted to the relating action. It is further understood to shape the mind, to unlock the imagination, and to enliven the soul. A deprivation thereof can thus lead to a kind of emotional or multisensory starvation. A seemingly critical function, however, play is not thought of as serious or significantly impactful, which leads to the contradictory notion of being an extremely serious act for some versus a childlike state or that of freedom for others. Another understanding of play is that it is not real, and it does not constitute ordinary life, but rather offers a temporary space or moment with its own inherent qualities through which to go beyond the real, the expected, or that which had been experienced. To this, psychoanalyst Donald Winnicott poses that play is intensely real and exists in a transitional space, fluctuating between one's inner reality and the external world. So I was diagnosed with endometriosis at the age of 16, and the journey has been one of challenges, confusion, but also perseverance and curiosity. The interest in learning about the condition and the urge to constantly find, discuss, or read more about it led me to develop my research under this area. As mentioned, my master's study was situated in graphic design and finalized in 2020. It was titled Visual Narratives Portraying the Lived Experiences of Women with an Invisible Illness, and the accompanied exhibition was titled Exposed Revelations of the 1 in 10. The research and practice then considered the condition and my lived experience in relation to that of other women for understanding the inner and the outer, the visible and the invisible. So, some context about the condition. It is currently understood as a gynecological condition, and I say currently because it is forever developing, changing. Endometriosis affects approximately 1 in 10 women of reproductive age, and it is characterized by the unwanted growth of endometrial-like tissue outside of the uterine cavity. It is a chronic and inflammatory condition causing multiple fluctuating physical symptoms such as extreme bleeding, nausea, bloating, fatigue, and in some cases, infertility. Treatment of the condition requires a long-term management plan paired with frequent laparoscopic procedures to assess its severity and remove lesions where located. This is a continual and invasive procedure. Due to the severity and variety, there is simultaneously the contributing psychological factors such as anxiety and depression, leaving often a negative impact on the overall quality of life. In an article titled Addressing Challenges in Endometriosis Pain Communication, the condition is aptly referred to as multidimensional, complex, and pervasive, causing women to feel powerless and a lack of control. There exists a lack of awareness of the psychological effects and understanding of symptom adversity among medical professionals and society, causing a misinterpretation of the condition and a significant delay in diagnosis. The sufficient knowledge and exploration into the condition becomes disempowering to women and contributes to the dismissal and normalization of pain experiences. Evident here is the systemic information gap, which often leads women to assume the responsibility of investigating the available research on the condition with the self-knowledge and experience acquired. However valuable, this form of knowledge is not medically recognized, but it highlights the need for interdisciplinary care and the co-creation with patients. So I've always been fascinated with the creative process. And dealing with the invisible condition endometriosis led to the engagement with the concept and practice of creative play in pursuit to quieten the mind and find a sense of release. The creative play process is underpinned by the discovery of play personalities, as established by medical professional Dr. Stuart Brown, and it can be described as the unique style or mode that results in one's most comfortable and natural state of play. So I engage with the process of art making through different forms of play during a creativity retreat in 2025, and simultaneously, sporadically confront suppressed feelings, sensations, and emotions through this experience. This prompted a visual catharsis, as the act of creating was done without pressure or expectation, and provided a sense of release and freedom, often not coupled with this condition. With this experience and learning through creating with the play personalities rather systematically, I realized how closely linked the play personalities are as a making system, reflected in my approach to research and creative or artistic practice. Based on these play personality types that Brown identified and developed, my process considers as most relevant only 4 of the 8 primary traits. These are the creator, the collector, the explorer, and the storyteller. The selected personalities can be briefly described as follows. The creator is known to make, to create, to transform, and construct something, often out of nothing, in relationship with creativity and directly artistic practice. The collector is categorized by the act of paying attention, closely observing their surroundings, and noting experiences. This personality often gathers and collects moments, memories, objects, or information. The explorer is known to search and to learn, whilst investigating or inquiring to understand, while simultaneously documenting the search and analyzing the results or production. Lastly, the storyteller, known as evocative and nonlinear, it encompasses a manner of transportation, offering a narration, textual, voice, or visual, and an application of imagination to convey personal, emotive, and/or worldly experiences. What became evident through this creative retreat was how I approach educating myself on the condition, the treatment, and the overall experience of endometriosis. It's much the same as the order and process through which the play personalities were engaged with. In my experience, for the purpose of informing or making sense of, subconsciously guiding all I create. As suggested, but in a different sequence, I consider the explorer as the process through which research and making is conducted. It considers the questions and many medical-related information sought in books, in digital spaces, and through social platforms, whilst exploring different materials and creative methods. Hereafter follows what I deem the second step, the collector. Through gathering information and documenting circumstances, what is collected is the understanding and exploration of lived and medical experience, as well as the creative approaches and tools. This includes collecting objects that relate to the condition with personal relevance or signify the experience, as well as reference materials and examples of works created by other practicing artists, which are considered to inform my process. The final 2 personalities can either function as separate steps or joint entities, as the creator and the storyteller both require an engagement with making, generating, or communicating. It is used to inform, to respond, or express through making in textual or visual format, considering all that has been uncovered and collected within the previous steps. Creative play serves as a powerful mode of expression. For some, the act of creative play and creative expression are understood to be closely linked. When consulting the discourse surrounding creative expression, it can be summarized that the gesture thereof is influenced by outer circumstances or experience, but harnesses the energy that comes from within an individual. Further noting that creative expression is shaped by the desire to find a larger meaning in the story of our lives and accrued experience or wisdom. This statement positions creative expression, much like creative play, as a largely personal approach, which requires a deep consciousness for the purpose of processing communicating, sharing personal thoughts, emotions, and/or experiences. As play extends the possibility of discovery, particularly establishing that which is intrinsic and important to oneself, it can be regarded as an instrument through which to access feelings and narrate the lived experience. From my perspective, I deem creative play as a moment or a state of being through a process in which all expectations are released, and I am transported to a complete feeling of ease through playing creatively. It offers a space where my feelings, such as pain or worry, thoughts and emotions are expressed and simultaneously regulated. It is also a form of relaxation personally, and it allows me to direct my focus elsewhere for a moment. It is an approach I have implemented intuitively to cope with the physical and mental challenges associated with endometriosis. Much like the condition, play for me is a rather contradictory process in the sense that it is approached as non-serious, but helps me deal with a rather complex, serious issue. It enables flow or release from a space that is mostly tense. It is a simple, age-old practice inherent in our being, but allows for the complex to be discovered. It might not be regarded as a scientific or a medical tool, but it has taught me considerably about the condition, how it functions, myself in relation to endometriosis and others, and it has brought a sense of understanding. According to Brown, authentic play requires a sense of self and embraces our awareness, making it a rich experience able to offer or provide release. The result of creative play often develops then a self-awareness, offering an opportunity where the self is understood through this initial purposeless act and is located through a particular state. Perhaps one of the first and most influential artists who have translated pain into art, giving it visible and emotional form, is Frida Kahlo. She playfully experiments with visualizations in her journal specifically, using humor and wit, yet conveys that which is serious, traumatic, and unconventional. Kahlo endured numerous medical and surgical interventions, including spinal reconstruction from a traumatic accident and the psychological toll of many miscarriages. Her journal chronicles her personal struggles and quest for cures, noting the instructions from medical professionals and her response to what she deemed as their failures. She translates her surgical scars and internal injuries into visual motifs like the disembodied foot in the two figures that are currently on screen, which she interprets as a means to reach catharsis through fragmentation, leading to and constructing a single transcendent narrative. In an extract from the book The Diary of Frida Kahlo, an intimate self-portrait, the following is noted. Nearly every drawing in Kahlo's diary is spontaneous and unplanned. Kahlo's automatic drawings were springboards to images that lurked in her unconscious, visions she teased out and then elaborated. After allowing herself the freedom to doodle, Kahlo put at least part of her rational mind to work, and from her vast lexicon of images, real and imagined, her biomorphic forms developed into faces, body parts, animals, and landscapes. Her visual sources were extensive. She was a voracious reader, a habit fed during the many periods when she was bedridden. Kahlo relished the element of chance in these drawings, and she coaxed a number of figures from ink spots, stains resulting from deliberately spilled and splattered ink, some pressed onto the opposite page, others so thick they soaked through to the next sheet of paper. She used a variety of mediums, colored pencils, inks and washes, crayons and gouache, and her choice at any one point also influenced her imagery. The diary or visual journal served as a laboratory for Kahlo to explore the medical, her subconscious, and emotional scape. She utilizes textual and visual counterpoints as a design and rhetorical technique that operate independently, yet closely interact to discern deeper meaning, such as the underlying tension, trauma, and often irony. The almost anatomical drawings seen. There we go, apologies. The almost anatomical drawing scene is testament of this, where the inserted spinal structure is made visible, and the other devastatingly depicts an umbilical cord wrapped around her lower body, with the text reading, "The pigeon made mistakes, it made mistakes." The works can be interpreted as either her contribution from a personal perspective to what must have been medical reports, or a mocking of that which is rather horrifying, as a means to process or relieve momentarily the emotional and psychological burden. The works therefore serves as a link between medical diagnosis and understanding of a particular condition. Interestingly, Brown states that play and its ability to bridge one's inner and outer worlds is not just therapeutic or cathartic, but it can also be diagnostic. So this prompted the question for me of how Brown's theory of creative play, focusing on the 4 appropriate personalities, might be used to guide the visualization of the medical experience, of my medical experience. Situated as the epistemological link between understanding scientific and medical reality, and defining creative methods for inquiring this knowledge about the condition and lived reality. This process aims to combine scientific inquiry, the interpretivist perspective, justified belief, and again, experience, supporting the development and validity of the knowledge created and visually communicated through creative practice. As an example of the development between medicine and art referred to, this work presented is a display of the start of a larger work titled Under the Macroscope. The watercolor exploration at the outset did not consider what the end work might be. The process rather involved numerous iterations and development until it effectively conveyed my feelings, my understanding of endometriosis, and my imagined visual representation of it based on my experience. I deemed it necessary to offer a magnification or an enlargement of a condition which is ambiguous and invisible to medical imaging processes. The work in its finality, presented here, aimed to reveal the lesions and the internal manifestation of endometriosis with an urgency to notice at a large scale that which is often missed. This work juxtaposes clearly visible sections with others that are more obscured, illustrating the interplay between visible and invisible, the scientific and the personal. The abnormality and unpredictable nature of the condition is signified within the underlying watercolor layer, whilst the method of diagnosis and treatment through laparoscopic surgery is mimicked through the precisely cut top layer, revealing that which rests beneath. This mode of macroscoping connects the medical and visual arts, essentially, providing a lens to understand complex issues like endometriosis. In the International Journal of Psychoanalysis, Marie Lenormand poses that there is also a negative aspect to play, and that it is often due to its therapeutic function, used as an attempt to self-cure or remedy against. As established, creative play enables creative expression, both interpreted as a healing modality. It should, however, be indicated that the process of creative play and its application as discussed is not regarded as a form of therapy, but rather a manner of personal healing and a cathartic occurrence. With this cognizance and recognizing play as a creative or similarly intuitive process, the play personalities are explored and further employed from a personal perspective and art-making approach. Through adapting the selected existing personalities as steps for making a response, or as a creative process to access the liminal space of invisible illness, it enabled the visualization of that which is largely unseen or hidden in between. As an example, these figures were produced through a creative play state, with no prior planning or real intent. The creation was initiated by a series of suppressed feelings and the need to let go thereof. Instinctively, I am drawn to watercolor. Each of the works started with an exploration and unguided application of this medium. The medium, due to my perception of its innate characteristics, signify the cathartic experience. In the literal sense, reflected in the natural, flowing and uncontrolled movement of the water and paint pigment, whilst figuratively includes moments that are freeing, relieving, and cleansing. The works were created at the time from an anxious mindset, focusing on pain and heightened emotions, momentarily seeking an outlet. Through a creative play state, which for me is painting with the need to shift the mind, the works can be read from two perspectives. First, as a medical or scientific representation of the actual manifestation of the condition, its lesions, referring to bruising and heavy bleeding often associated, while secondly, the depiction of underlying feelings and often hidden experiences. The result of the creative play experience in this example gives way to further development of the medium and its communicative capabilities of the illness narrative beyond purely verbal or textual accounts. This is a follow-up on the process that I've just discussed. Curator and art critic Bourriard posits that artistic activity is a game. This idea is further elaborated as a process characterized by its fluidity, where the forms, patterns, and functions are continually evolving and shaped by the interplay of periods, experiences, and social contexts. Contradictory, Huizinga outlines that because a work of art is mostly bound to matter and to the limitations of form, the production of a work might originate from a play instinct, but that the execution remains subject to skill, planning, and making with intent. I argue that there is some element of play present in the creating of an artwork or any visual form. In agreement, the end work created cannot be regarded as play. However, through allowing and entering a play state, adopting a creative play personality through which a work is initiated is regarded as an act of playing in creation, in my opinion. What is suggested is that one adopts a creative play state or personality at the outset of the creation process, allowing the work to take shape and develop intuitively, whereafter it can be considered and refined to represent or convey with more direct intent. Later, Huizinga suitably suggests that play can be reckoned as the growing point of art, the start of the process. Appropriately, the philosopher Hans Gadamer's perspective on play and the play of art identifies both as integral parts of a complementary process and states that the artwork comes forth through the play movement, where meaning is created through the in-between interactions. In the text, Play as Symbol of the World, Eugene Fink positions play as a symbol, not because of representation, but because it conveys one's way of relating to the world or phenomena. A seminal artistic figure, Henri Matisse, reflects on this notion of play and was of the belief that the way we play is set out to express what is important and will be translated through our work. Matisse faced significant health challenges, but it was abdominal cancer that spurred his most influential works. He could no longer stand to paint, and in that time developed a technique he termed painting with scissors. Creating from a playful, spontaneous state through cutting shapes freely from brightly colored paper allowed Matisse to express rhythms and emotions. This creative method symbolizes the medical through the act of cutting, and a sense of freedom through making and arranging the shapes which soothes the psyche. The phenomenological perspective, together with art-based approaches, can visualize embodied experiences, reflect emotional impressions, exposes that which is otherwise unknown into a visible form, and importantly, it acknowledges the patient narrative. Defined as disconnecting traditional objectivism of scientific knowledge, phenomenology places focus on the conscious, lived experience or phenomena, elucidating the relationship between the subject and the world. In the text for the Phenomenology of Play, author Roberto Fani states, "The keystone of phenomenology is the concept of intentionality. according to which we overcome the lacerating dichotomy between subjectivity and objectivity, between man and the world, interior world and exterior world, discovering the mutual relationship between such needs, and therefore the awareness, but also the responsibility of being subject and object, part of the same world. This statement emphasizes the importance of considering knowledge that is not exclusively one-sided, much like the condition endometriosis, and the greater developments between the medical and the humanities. Therefore, positioning creative play as an epistemological link in conjunction with a phenomenological perspective provides a method for accessing the subtleties between the body, the self, and the personal medical experience. With the central aim of bridging the gap between the medical condition focus, these visual methods provide a manner of communicating the often inexpressible through personal representation and comprehension. This approach acknowledges the emotional component that is frequently overlooked, often dismissed, and the lived reality associated with, in this instance, endometriosis, enabling the visual translation to transcend the obvious or factual, conveying the unnoticed, the internal and external, the liminal state existing between illness and experience. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Micaela. Wow. Okay, I can see lots of clapping.
That was a mouthful.
That was most definitely a mouthful. Um, I have lots of questions to ask you, but I also very much want to open it up to the floor for people to chat to you now. I'm actually can't at the moment see the screen. So if you would like to comment or ask questions, throw it into the chat, stick up your hand, put your what shall we call it? Put your camera on. Just find a way to attract my attention while I figure out how to find you all in a kind of an easy list. Okay, but maybe I'll just kick off. One of the things now, I'm not sure how this works because I certainly found for me, and I'm not sure if it was because it was a fairly acute space of illness, but I just absolutely could not play. Simple as that. It was not going to happen. That flow or release was just impossible. And the thing that actually got me through these couple of months of fear and terror and what is going to happen and blah, 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 was actually routine. It was structure. It wasn't play at all. It was food prep, regular beach walking, knitting jigsaw puzzles, which are not flow. They're very much structure, sewing, that kind of thing. And it was very much a kind of a routine-based stepping through the day step by step. So I'm curious about that dynamic. Is that a kind of a personality thing? I mean, because I just could not play, not for months.
I think it's, and again, my opinion, it's personality, but it's also associated with the condition or with the illness. From my experience, and I am very much the type of person who I want to know what happens next week. I want to know what happens in 3 years' time. I plan ahead. I am calculated. I am organized. But this condition forces me to not be. I'm unable to do that because the condition is, it presents differently, quite literally each and every day. Where the only thing that I knew, the only kind of, I suppose, process that I knew for coping and for kind of, I need to find something to help me right now was to go and sit and paint. Yeah. So I don't know if that kind of answers what you're referring to, but I think it's both personality and condition. And like I said, from my perspective, it's what I know to do best and to kind of, it's something that I can instantly go and do within my space.
Yeah, yeah. And it actually then turns your attention, however, to the yourself in a way. Whereas I suppose my strategies were to distract myself.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, yeah. Um, Belinda has her hand up. Belinda, let's bring you into the
Um,
conversation.
Thank you. Thanks, Andrea. Michaela, thank you very much. And congratulations on an excellent presentation. You and I speak very often, so I won't take up too much of the time. Thank you very much for speaking about this incredibly, prevalent but silenced condition that so many of us suffer from. My question kind of links to what Andrea has said. So much of the time that one spends in pain with endometriosis is literally physical, debilitating pain, pain where you cannot get out of bed, where you literally cannot, lift your body off the floor in the most excruciating pain. Sorry, most excruciating pain. Sorry. And yeah, and then there are moments where it's more the kind of emotional pain of dealing with the condition and the loss that's associated with the condition, and the balancing of that. You obviously are a trained artist, and it's ingrained in your being to look through the lens of artistic creation at this. What can you maybe suggest, or what can you take from that to give to somebody who is maybe not an artist, but can benefit from, the play methodology? But how do they do that when they are in that moment of excruciating physical pain, or in the later moment of emotional pain? But they're not an artist. They can't paint. They don't know how to sculpt.
Mm.
Thank you so much.
Sure, Belinda. Important and interesting question, but also a difficult one. So I refer back to Brown's statement where he says that play is your most comfortable and natural state. So again, I suppose linking back to personality, it's about what you find comfort in and what interests you. Um, yeah, I think play can take many different forms. Um, does not necessarily have to be painting, but again, that is where, for me, it links to my personal experience where I resonate with painting. I don't think I have a clear answer for you in terms of, what to do, but I do, I stand firmly with Brown's statement of that it is a process in which you feel most comfortable, and through doing or playing, um, that kind of brings you to the most relaxed, comfortable state.
Thanks, Michaela. I appreciate that. I might also maybe from my own experience add that something like meditation or yoga or anything that kind of just moves you out of your body could also be play, not necessarily the artistic play,
Yes,
of an artist, of your caliber.
absolutely.
But just the kind of play of, something like, mute movement or something
Mhm.
like that is also play.
Yeah,
Thanks so
absolutely.
much.
Okay, maybe that's a kind of an answer to some extent to my kind of, because I mean, I did need to walk
Mm,
every single day regularly on the on the beach. So maybe that is a form of play. I'm not sure. It felt to me very much not what you mean by play. Um,
yes,
but maybe play is different for different people. Um,
but it did bring a sense of release. Am I right in saying that?
it was a sense of absolute necessity. Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just okay.
Yeah.
managed to get down there. You've managed to take these steps. You've taken this step. You've taken the next step. Well done. Now you prepare your food. Okay, well done. You've done that. You kind of progress yourself through the day by these little milestones, but it's very much keeping it together rather than allowing yourself to flow or confront anything.
And those instances are also empowering. It gives you the control over, that moment and being in pain, or within discomfort. It gives you kind of authority over you deciding what to do and achieving that, like going for a walk.
Yes, which is not play. I think that's what I'm trying to say. It's because flow
is
would be
very
giving
much
that over, wouldn't it?
It is very much contradictory. I do believe
mm,
that too. Yeah, and personal. How I
mm,
perceive play might be very different to how Belinda perceives play.
mm. Okay, interesting. Peter, you have your hand up. Let's bring you in.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm fascinated by the play element, and I'm glad you're working with it because my middle name is Play, and I think the idea of play and the way play is defined and its role within academia needs serious attention and a very, very important relook. I've had my own experiences where I've moved away from working purely with paint on canvas, where I was trained to be dabbling in other avenues. People know me will know in the avenues that I dabble in, and suddenly you find yourself in that space, and there is this deep question as to that's not actually serious, that's play. And where is that interface in academia between what we're doing here, what we term as play, which is, I believe, a vital part to human survival. And I too am struggling to find those links to be placing those moments of play, because that I think is when creative people are at their most heightened state, and to bring that into the creative space as well. So I commend you for that, Micaela. You're uncovering some very interesting things there, and yeah, I think you've pretty much written the methodology of your study already.
Thank you, Prof. I appreciate that.
Chance. Thank you.
Just having a look. So tell us maybe then a little bit more about your figures. I like that. I very much like that if that's part of your methodology. They would also potentially, some of them be part of play, some of them maybe also just holding that how can you say it? Almost that ambivalence, vacillation between structure and play. How did you come to be? How did you come to think of those four figures in terms of your own experience?
Like I outlined, and I just want to clarify, Prof. Hurst, you are talking about the collector, yes. Immediately, and again, that might be because of my artistic background, they had this creativity to them, which I resonated with, and which for me made sense as a creative process. So again, it's that, like, the two sides. So I engage with it to play, but I'm also thinking about them as a process to follow, steps to go through, which for me again symbolizes the contradictory nature of the condition. It being the one state and then the other, wanting freedom, wanting to play, wanting to not be restricted, but also wanting structure, wanting a recipe to follow and to move through.
Yes. Completely identify with that one. Okay, just looking at the message. Ansel has a question that she's put in chat. Do you want to speak to it, Ansel?
Hello, I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Micaela. That was really stunning. It made me a little bit emotional because your art is just fantastic. And there's just something about it, about the flow, that's just really impactful. I also have endo, and it is infuriating the way that you are treated by doctors and healthcare workers. It can just feel quite alone quite quickly. And that can be quite yeah, it's a confronting space. But what I actually wanted to ask you is if you've thought of maybe thinking of your research as autoethnographical, um, and if maybe you've thought of turning it into something that could even be used in therapy spaces. Because I'm already thinking I have some mates, some friends who also have endo, and we meet every now and then to just kind of chat about the situation. Um, and I feel like this is like a really beautiful thing that could be used as like a bonding experience. I'm thinking about women who do women's circles. I don't know if you've heard about the red tent. I know it's all woo woo. But it can be a very healing thing, and I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Thank you, Anzel. Wow, first of all, thank you for that compliment on my work. I really appreciate it. Um, it is absolutely an emotional topic. And I think for me personally, the more I speak about it and the more I engage with it, the more comfortable I get in talking about it. I'm looking at your chat and I'm going to try and kind of respond to the bits in that order. Autoethnography, absolutely. It's a method that I've employed in my master's research, and it's something that I will take through into my PhD studies. I have actually thought about, creating this kind of model that could be used. I am hesitant about terming it as therapy, because that sits within a very different discipline. But healing, certainly, and cathartic, yes. So again, linking back to something that you do or that you engage that brings you personally a sense of whether it be release, whether it takes you to an emotional place, whether it allows you to confront these difficult, feelings, topics. So absolutely on that end, I hope that I've answered that. And then an interesting note, just yesterday, I went to see a doctor um, about some issues that I've been having. And as someone with endometriosis, you would know that you never know if it's just, stomach ache or if it's endometriosis related. And I walked into his office and kind of, spoke about my background. And I said to him, well, I have endometriosis, and the last surgery was, a couple years ago. And his direct response was that I feel so sorry for women with endometriosis because there is literally nothing we can do for them. And that made me again realize how important it is for you as the woman with endometriosis to find ways in dealing with the condition, with the physical aspects of it, but also the emotional and the psychological aspects of it. That was again a mouthful. I hope I've touched on your points.
Thank you so much. Thank you. You're a lovely human. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Micaela. That's terrifying if your doctor says there's nothing we can do for you. So, yeah.
It is. But it's also, I don't want to say that it was empowering, but something in him acknowledging that, kind of made me go like, yes, I know that, and I've been saying that, and I've been experiencing that. So hearing that from someone, within the medical field, it's not empowering, it's not the right word, but yeah, it certainly instills many, many feelings.
No, it's validating. It's actually,
Yes, that's the yes.
yeah, lovely. Glenn has his hand up. Glenn, shall we bring you into the conversation?
Thanks so much, Andrea, and thank you, Micaela, for your lovely presentation. I must commend you on the courage. that you are exhibiting in speaking about something that is usually so personal to a great many people. And I want to also pick up on the tangent about the autoethnography, if you don't mind. And one of the things I've been pondering on in listening to you speak, looking at the iconography and images that you've used in your presentation, and you're taking us through your journey, is what I would allude to as the different versions of oneself being integrated somehow. I saw what when you looked at the Frida Kahlo diaries, that there's an integration of knowledge through the doodles, through the sketching. In your own work also, you had one image up, the beautiful painting, where you said, I didn't know how it was going to turn out at the end of it. So there wasn't some preconceived idea of this is when I will know it's going to be finished. And then what's ultimately happened in your life is you've taken something which is usually like a health condition in the private or personal or secret self and integrated it into your professional self, into your public self in the type of work that you're doing. And do you see that same sort of process of the integration of self at work in the integration of knowledge of the way that your artistic aesthetic and palette has developed? Are you
Yes.
also perhaps thinking about the integration of other people's experiences with the condition into your awareness? Is that seeping through? And do you see a different version of yourself prior to your awareness and diagnosis that, yes, I've got this medical condition, which is debilitating for some people and could be for myself also, but I continue to push on? And then do you see a version of the after diagnosis reflected in your artistic work? I know that's also a mouthful, but I'll just follow the trend for the day. But thank you for a very rich presentation.
Thank you, Glenn. Wow. You've touched on so many relevant, important points and experiences that I've had throughout, starting with this visualizing this journey. So yes, the self has changed since diagnosis in 2016, being very young, to now being 30 years old, and the different phases and life stages. So yes, that transition has absolutely been present. The other thing that I've now been able to reflect on going into a PhD is that my master's work was, I don't want to say angry, but it was created from a space where I wanted to be heard. I want you to understand how this feels. I want you to look at this ugly condition and kind of acknowledge the severity of it. Whereas my practice now is much more sensitive. And it's almost, I won't say, I suppose it is a form of acceptance, but through that, I've come to create works that are, for me as well, beautiful to look at, that stems from a place of pain, traumatic experiences, something that is rather sensitive. So that is where the work practically currently is at. I've not touched on half the points that you've raised, but as you spoke, I went yes, yes, yes to all of them. Thank you.
Fantastic. I mean, you will have the YouTube.
Yes,
You can always go back
Fantastic.
and chat to Glenn. Yeah, I was also saying, wow, fantastic. Yes, yes, yes. And then you kind of go through and then you can't remember half of it. So yeah, YouTube is fantastic for that. So a quick other question. What happens, I mean, it was just feeding off what you said to Glenn. What happens when people view your work? I mean, because you do want to show people things. And what happens when they come in there and they look at the slot and they go, what? Does that happen? I mean, and then are you putting yourself out there on the line? And then, I mean,
Yes.
yeah, so that idea of showing the results of your play in a way, or your introspect. I mean, I know that's part of what art is, but that also feels like a very kind of vulnerable and terrifying moment.
It is, yes. And I also think that the value in showing work from a very personal perspective is that it opens up, it opens room for interpretation. So someone viewing it might be experiencing a very different condition, but something within the work resonates with what it is they're experiencing, and I find that very interesting. And the different ways in which some of the works are viewed. I've had, for example, comments that, oh, the work looks like skin, or it looks like cells, or it reflects a more cancerous condition, which is, I mean, not my intent. But if it offers that interpretation and it resonates with that particular individual, fantastic. But it still very much is a vulnerable space of sharing.
Mm, mm. And if people don't resonate at all, does that ever happen?
I suppose it does, Provost. But yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of, if a work is up in an exhibition space, they would, either not view it, not give it, lots of time and move on to the next, which is absolutely okay. On that, I think it's important also to say that the work that I create, first of all, is for myself, and it's for me to get it out and for me to understand. What happens beyond that, in my perspective, is, a bonus or not.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And educating doctors?
Yeah, that's again, it for me touches on the therapy space. I tread lightly there, but I have currently been exploring self-knowledge, experiential knowledge, and how that adds to the understanding of a condition, and how that is also valuable in the medical space in learning about the condition, especially endometriosis. It does not represent the same in any woman. It is different from one person to the next. So a textbook diagnosis, for example, is most likely not going to be effective. So, having that personal knowledge as part of medical or scientific knowledge, I think is absolutely valuable and necessary.
Absolutely. Have a doctor who's had endometriosis himself. I do. Yeah. I think we have a second or two for potentially somebody to jump in with a last question if there's a kind of burning desire. Belinda.
Thank you. Yeah, a very quick mention, and Micaela, if you don't want to speak about it, that's perfectly fine, but you have my permission to do so. Maybe it speaks to Anzel's question about the kind of therapeutic space. Do you want to say something about the collaborative art making?
Yes. So thank you, Belinda, for bringing that up. A while ago, end of last year, Belinda and I engaged in this process of sharing our endometriosis stories, our experiences. I've used something that they call participatory design as a method. So where the participant is regarded as co-creator, not as I am the artist and I create for you, you create with me. It was a space of exchange. So I would create and offer to Belinda for reflection. We entered into discussion, asked questions, exchanged visual references and inspiration. And from that developed a work, including both our experiences, that I then gifted to Belinda as a marker, of that process, and in sharing her very personal story with me. And maybe, Belinda, if I can throw it back to you, if you could briefly touch on what that process meant for you, could also perhaps tie into Anzel's comment.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll be very, very quick. It was incredibly cathartic. Also because I was speaking to somebody who I could speak in shorthand to, because yeah, you knew what I was speaking about. But as I said, it was very cathartic. But it also gave me the opportunity to reflect. in ways that I had not necessarily done. Because if you're in your mind and you're thinking your own thoughts about your own issue, it's very different from verbalizing it to another person. So that kind of reflection was incredibly useful. Yeah, I think that is something that really needs to be explored more, because it is a space which is not necessarily therapeutic in the way that you're going to step on therapists' toes, but because it is led by the person who experiences the condition. It can be incredibly useful. And yeah, I found it a cathartic and a life-changing experience to work with you on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Belinda.
Okay, that is a wonderful positive note to end on, and a way forward, because I really think that that's a fabulous idea. That kind of sharing through shared making. I think that's absolutely wonderful. Yes. So thank you, Micaela. Thank you so much for bringing this, kind of out into the open, and I can see lots of hand clapping going up the screen. So, yeah, a wonderful presentation, and thank you so much for being with us. And yeah, everybody have a fantastic weekend. We won't be, our seminar won't be happening on Good Friday, because we are all going to be, relaxing and enjoying the goodness of Good Friday. So thank you so much. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in a bit.
Thank you, professors. Thank you, everyone.
Hey, thanks, Andrea.